And we're going to talk big story right off the bat here, and two more local people in trouble over the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Now, we have told you these types of stories before, but these guys are different for a few reasons. One, they're brothers from Oregon. Two, they were actually charged, not just investigated or accused or arrested and released, but formally charged by the feds. And three, they're members of a far-right extremist group I'm sure you've heard of. Kristen Severance explains why that's important to the criminal case against them.
Among the thousands of people who breached the Capitol January 6th were two self-proclaimed members of the Proud Boys from Oregon. Brothers 24-year-old Matthew Klein of Sherwood and 21-year-old Jonathanpeter Klein of Heppner were arrested on conspiracy and obstruction charges for their role in the Capitol attack. The Proud Boys are self-described Western chauvinists who deny any connection to the alt-right. Pictures and court documents show Matthew Klein allegedly breached a wall at the Capitol and helped others to do the same. Pictures also show the Kleins entering the Capitol and pushing through law enforcement. They're accused of leaving the building and then wrenching open a secure door to go back inside, forcing police officers to fend off the brothers and another wave of rioters.
Well, I think it's significant for a number of different reasons.
Alexander Ross is a professor at Portland State University. He has studied radical right groups.
These brothers actually have violent records in Portland and Salem, right? So they pretty much match a profile of a very violent right-wing counter-protester or advanced sort of insurgent in the Pacific Northwest.
This is video of Jonathanpeter Klein at a rally on September 7th in Salem. He's in the shirt with the orange sleeves, chasing a Black Lives Matter protester. Matthew Klein was cited for having a firearm in public a few weeks later after a Proud Boys rally in Portland. Police say they found shields, baseball bats, paintball guns, and Klein's loaded 9mm in the truck he was in.
Why is it a big deal that these two brothers were arrested who claim to be Proud Boys?
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing is the federal government build a case around the January 6th insurgents that is looking like a larger conspiracy. And this is, by the way, how the Klan was brought down in the 1870s under our first anti-terrorism laws in this country, looking at conspiracies against the government. And so they are connecting the dots.
According to federal court documents filed this week, another right-wing group, Oath Keepers, allegedly communicated with the Proud Boys before the attack on the Capitol. In those documents, Oath Keepers leader Kelly Meggs wrote, "This week I organized an alliance between Oath Keepers, Florida 3%ers, and Proud Boys. Quote, we have decided to work together and shut this expletive down." And that Kelly had, quote, orchestrated a plan with the Proud Boys for January 6th.
Why is that significant that these different groups, are alleged to have communicated before the attack on the Capitol?
It really verifies a lot of what people were thinking going into this, that the Proud Boys started out as sort of like an attempt to create this urban, savvy, almost fashionable right-wing fight club. And increasingly over the years, they became more and more militarized and sort of started fusing with more paramilitary rural groups. And so their sort of hybridization and alliance with the Oath Keepers really indicates the extent to which this movement had accumulated power, organizing capabilities, and a shared ideology in a sense.
When two Proud Boys, get arrested, does that help or hurt their movement?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really important question because we're going to see the profile of these groups raise as they get more media attention, and people that are angry at the government are going to seek them out. We know from research out of London that Oregon actually leads in searches for how to join the Proud Boys of any state in the whole country. We're number one. And so there is increased attention placed on these groups that is going to bring people in.
I'm Kristen Severance, KGW News.